There we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the July Manifest Monthly. How are we doing?
Good.
How was everybody's last month? We talked about synchronicities last month and paying attention to the synchronicities in our lives. How did that go? Did anybody tune into that a little bit more?
I had some really very kind of in your face it could be nothing other than a synchronicity. So I
Nice.
had just real briefly an incident at work where I had to involve human resources and it was put on me to kind of like state the situation, and it was like going up against the big dogs basically. So I was debating on how I should say it, and just pops up on my phone. Apple News headlines is have don't hold back, have your voice heard. And I was like, okay, all right, I you got my back, so I'm just gonna do what I think I need to do. So that was really great. I love when I see stuff like that.
It's like divine timing right there, right?
Yes. Yes.
Very, very
It's
cool. I
really,
love that.
really cool.
Anybody else? I did mute you all, by the way. No one else? I had a lot of I had a lot of ones come up, but not just randomly, but when I was making a decision about foods, my food choices, trying to make the healthier choices or whatever. And every once in a while when I would question something, I would either get like 111 or 1111 or something. I was like, oh, okay. I don't know. To me, it just felt like, oh, this is the right decision. Okay, we're good. It wasn't just about the food. It was like, should I fast for an hour longer, or just like little things like that. I know that in health we try to be consistent, and consistency is best. But sometimes, some days, my needs feel like they're a little different. I don't know if you all experience that every once in a while, but I definitely do. And also it depends on how much activity I'm doing that day. Did I go to the gym? Did I not? So I'm constantly questioning different things. So I've been getting a lot of those ones popping up. Even like um on the labels, like the numbers. I'd see like 11 and then 11 down a little bit lower. I'm like, "Oh, okay." So for me, it's just kind of like a reassuring synchronicity. I didn't have any in your face synchronicities though, so that's pretty cool, Nicole. Does anybody else have any before I move on? Not sharing tonight? Okay. Very good. Um, so for everybody that is going to watch the replay too, I want to just put this out there that we do have, I think all of you that are with me right now are on it, but we do have a Live and Joy group on Facebook. And I want to encourage you to, if you haven't joined it, to join it. And if you need that invite, let me know. Also, feel free to post in it, the little things that are bringing you joy throughout your life, because your joy can bring a smile to somebody else's face. And the more that we share, just the bigger it expands, and the better we all are. So I just wanted to encourage that real quick. Um, and I'm just going to do a real quick monthly recap of my personal journey here. And this kind of goes to how when I talk about your outer reality is a reflection of what's going on inside. I have a really good example of that for you. And this isn't just a lot of this has to do with the podcast idea and everything, but it's not just the podcast. There's other things as well that I kind of got stuck on, right? So I'm using the word stuck because it seems to be like my mantra lately. Not my mantra, I shouldn't say that, but it just seems to be the way things are. Energetically, physical energy has been pretty decent, but the things that I want to accomplish have been getting a little bit stuck, right? So last month I talked about how things kept coming up every time I wanted to record a podcast. And it was like the timing wasn't right, or something happened in the family where my attention had to go elsewhere, and or I was trying to schedule space at the studio and it wasn't working out. So I had finally resolved to, I'm just going to record from home, right? And that was really a big freeing moment for me. But the residual in my reality, which I feel like lags behind a bit, right? Um, a lot of things got stuck. So I have two different sources of income that both got stuck, right? Maddie, my daughter, was in the hospital last month, and I get paid to be her personal care assistant through the her insurance company. But when they go into the hospital, you don't get paid for that because obviously they're paying for the hospital stay. One click of the mouse, and they, take the authorization away, the funds stop. But the process to get it back up and running again, it was like a good few weeks, and it was like, oh my gosh, and I'm not getting this income, and it just got stuck. I mean, it was coming to me. I knew it was going to come to me eventually, but it was definitely just stuck in the bureaucracy of the, how the insurance company runs or whatever. And then I have another source of income that is still kind of stuck. I know it's coming to me, but yeah, there's some legalities and things holding up there, so it's just stuck. And I just thought that was a really good example of how um, your reality definitely does reflect what's going on within. So just to give you a quick update on the podcast, when I went ahead and let go of the perfections of everything and the techie stuff, I did what I could. So the recording part and editing the volumes and stuff like that actually came quite easily. But the first 6 episodes of the Live and Joy podcast are officially recorded, and I am still on a roll, and I'm going to continue going. And then hopefully, I'm hoping that we can launch this sometime in the fall. I would like to have, a good 20 episodes recorded before I actually get to that point to launch it. So I'm really excited about that. So once I made that connection and things started to flow again, then other things started to flow because it wasn't just my finances. Megan, you're aware our sales were really low last month in the studio, and I feel like that was connected. So that was kind of stuck. Um, there were some medical things for my daughter that no matter, I couldn't do anything more, and I want to proceed with changing her care and things like that, but I was just stuck. I had to wait for this doctor, or I had to wait for this insurance company, or I was just constantly in a mode of stuckness. But now things are starting to flow again because I'm allowing things to flow again, if that makes sense. That's just my own personal takeaway from this past month. So I wanted to share that with you. And oh, also, even in one of those episodes, I had Maddie sitting right next to me the whole time. So so you'll hear her on the podcast, just a couple little noises or whatever. But that was fun. I'm actually having fun doing that now. So now I'm finding joy in it, and it's fun, it's flowing, it's awesome. All right. That was just my recap for the month. So what I wanted to bring to you tonight for this month, um, for our July topic, is actually our shadow, right? Shadow work, shadow exploration. What is the shadow? What is shadow work? Some people are very familiar with it and some people are not. And I wanted to talk a lot about that tonight, different things to explore. So we're going to talk about, first of all, what it is and my journey along with that as well. I wanted to just share that when I first um, got on the spiritual path 7-ish years ago, like really opening up, I my name of the game, and Cassie and Lynn, I know that you'll know this, was to just push all the negativity away. Let's get rid of all the negative and just let the good come in and not focus on anything, any negative thoughts, not focus on the bad stuff, try to move through the bad stuff, get rid of the drama in my life. You know, there's some people that were very negative that I've distanced from. It was just all about just focusing on the good, because what you focus on is what you bring more of in, right? That's something that we talk a lot about in manifestation. And that's exactly what I did. I put up my boundaries, and this was a good thing, by the way. I'm not saying that this is a bad thing. I'm just explaining to you my early stages of this journey. So I did. I am distanced from certain negative people, which was a good thing. You know, a lot of people won't bring drama my way anymore. Like, a lot of people know not to talk to me about certain things because I just, not my thing. I mean, if you have a problem and you want to talk it out, of course I'm going to be your listening ear. I'm not saying that I'm not a friend anymore. I'm just saying that certain things I don't want to bring in. I don't want to get involved in gossiping. I don't want to get involved in, like the meddling things and family and friends and stuff like that. So I just kind of, here's my bubble. That stuff stays out, the good stuff stays in, and that's what I wanted. And I think a lot of people do that. A lot of people focus on that aspect of things because we're taught to, in the manifestation world or even the spiritual world, to just, be as high vibe as you can, and, non-negative, and that is good to a point. But what I think, in my personal experience, what happens is some suppression might be happening, right? Not dealing with some things that maybe we should deal with. So we're going to get into that a little bit. Um, it is human nature to seek out pleasure and, repel the pain, just avoid pain at all costs, and in any level. That is just the basis of our existence, really, is to just, you know, seek out the good, and we don't want to deal with the bad, and that's just the bottom line. And so that's a normal thing that I did in my earlier spiritual awakening years, right? um in the last, I don't know, we've had like 3 months now, I think, that we brought up Carl Jung, who's the Swedish psychiatrist from the early 1900s that made like waves and strides in the psychiatry field. And he has that quote that we talked about before, that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Remember that? Well, there's another quote here, and I want to talk about it. First of all, he coined the term shadow, the shadow self. That's his work. That's pretty much where this whole concept comes from. And it describes the aspects of the personality that we choose to reject or repress. And I found this really interesting. The parts of ourselves that we don't like, or that we think society won't like. So maybe there's a thought that you've had, or an experience, or a choice, or a mistake, or just something you're not proud of, and or even, I mean, what's wrong with having a thought? Okay, so maybe that goes against the grain, and if I say it, people are going to look at me kind of weird, you know, or my family won't accept me, or whatever. We tend to suppress these things because we want naturally to be accepted, because that's essentially pleasure, right? We naturally want to connect with people, and if we do things that kind of go against that, we could challenge that and maybe not have those human connections that we're seeking out, especially through the people that we're seeking them from. Um, Not wanting to deal with these pieces. That's kind of why we suppress or repress. We repress them because it's not something that we want to deal with. Okay, I made that mistake. All right, let's just move on. Forget about it. It's in the past. Can't do anything about it. Move on. And that is great. That is you shouldn't live in the past. But if you have a meaning attached to these things that may have happened in your past, then that is something that, even if you try to repress, it's going to come back up to the surface at some point in time anyway. So what we do is, when we don't want to deal with these negative aspects of ourselves, we push them down into the unconscious psyche, right? push the negative away. See the correlation there? So what we repress never stays repressed. It lives on in the unconscious, and despite what our ego would have us believe, the conscious mind is the one really running the show. That's another Carl Jung quote. Again, just leading into the whole awareness thing. If you don't have awareness of this stuff, it can rule your life. So look at your reality. Look at what's going on within, and you'll understand what's going on without, right? And then we have that quote, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. I just wanted to repeat that again because it's such an incredible statement. So in my opinion, in my efforts to be the light and just have the good stuff, I pushed away all the negative, but I do believe that I actually pushed down a lot of the negative too. So I didn't want to, certainly I don't want to be the person that I was before, but I also love the person that I was before because it is me. It is a part of me. Even though I may not be proud of everything, or maybe there were some times in my life where I felt shame or embarrassment or felt like a failure, or, these are all normal ranges of emotions that every human experiences at some point in time or another. So it's not like you're alone in this, all right? So the process is when we start to push away the negative is we reject it. So we reject that piece of ourselves. If we cast it away, we repress it, bury it down deep, and then we project, right? We project, things happen, or sometimes some sort of erratic behavior will come up and we just come right out with it. And it's because we got triggered somehow and it's projecting itself because it wants to come up and be dealt with and processed at some point. You just don't realize it, right? And I'm going to give you a really good example of this. So I am going to get very transparent with you here. And it's actually kind of scary. I'm starting to sweat because I don't want to be judged, right? But here we go. So let's talk about the law of mirrors, and then I'll get into this so that you understand. So the law of mirrors is one of the 12 universal laws of manifestation that basically states that what you are triggered by in somebody else, the reason why you're triggered is because you have a repressed aspect of yourself that reflects that, right? So that's the law of mirrors. So if somebody, comes across your path and you say something like, oh, I really don't like that person. Well, what is it about that person you don't like? And really look at it because that's going to give you the path to where your repression is coming in. So that repressed part of you, that the shadow. Um, Same thing, by the way. I think I may have said this before, the good stuff. So if there's somebody that you really admire out there, like what is it about them you really admire? Because what you admire in them, you haven't acknowledged as your own gift yet. So that's another thing to look at as well. And I love that statement. I just absolutely love that. I heard that like a month and a half ago or something on a podcast or something. I always knew that the law of mirrors, like whatever you're getting from somebody else is something that you have within because we are all connected, which is another law, universal law, which is the law of oneness. We're all connected. Everything is connected. So what I have, you have, what you have, I have, and whatever. So I wanted to just bring out that law of mirrors real quick so that when you start to judge me with what I'm about to tell you, you'll understand that there's a piece of you, that's an aspect of what you're hearing. All right. So at the gym, I always bring up gym stories. Isn't that funny? Sometimes there are, I'll say women, sometimes there are women that are very overweight, that wear very skimpy clothing that I find not attractive. Okay. And I know this is judgy. And I will tell you that I used to be an extremely judgy person. I've always admitted it, I've always known it, and I will say it until the day is done. But when I see someone who really shouldn't be wearing what they're wearing, it triggers something in me, right? It really triggers something in me. There's something grotesque about it, I guess is where I'm just being very raw here. So I'm not trying to offend anybody. Please just hear me out. But there's a feeling of I don't want to say filth. That's not the word, but there's just this feeling of hmm, grotesqueness is kind of a harsh word, but kind of that. It's not attractive. I feel repulsed by it. Maybe that's a good way of putting it. There's just like this uneasy feeling. Okay. So if you didn't know me when I was 70 pounds heavier, I was that person. But I would never go to a gym or in public without hiding myself. I was ashamed to put myself completely out there at my heaviest weight, right? That was a big thing for me. Now, when I see somebody in the gym, I actually admire them for it. And I just say to myself, good for you. Good for you for not having that, that shame or that disgust feeling about yourself, and that you just put yourself out there and you're proud to be out there, even though you probably should have clothing that's a couple sizes bigger, you know? I just kind of look at them, I send them love, and I go, good for you. So I feel like that part of me, that part of my shadow, that aspect of me that I didn't like, because I certainly did not like myself at that weight. I didn't like how I felt at that weight. I really feel like that has come up, and I've processed it, and I've worked through it because it doesn't trigger me anymore. It doesn't trigger me the way it used to, not in that whole negativity kind of way. It still triggers me in a way of, well, God bless them, good for them, in that kind of a way, but it's a more genuinely positive way, right? So now I'm starting to admire people like that because I admire the aspect of me that I haven't acknowledged as a gift yet, and that is that I can put myself out there and I don't have to be afraid of being judged. Does that make sense? That whole concept? All right. Um,
Absolutely.
what's that?
I said absolutely. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Um, the one that's an example of one that I've worked through, and I'm going to give you an example of one that I'm working on now that I can't seem to get out of, but I'm hoping that you'll all be able to relate to this anyway. This one's kind of a little bit more funny, but dangerous drivers make me so angry. They make me very, very angry, and I boom, I react right away. Now I'm not talking about, people who just want to go fast or whatever. I'm talking about the people that weave in and out of traffic. We were on the AC Expressway the other day, and somebody was flying up the shoulder because they didn't want to sit in the traffic, and then they cut into traffic, and then two exits up, they cut over 3 lanes to get to the exit. That's just dangerous. And if it gets really close to me, now it's fear, right? Because I've had a couple of accidents. So I'm like, but then I'm screaming, like, why? Why do you have to be that way? Well, I will tell you that I know for a fact that when I was younger, I was that driver. I was a completely reckless and dangerous driver. And how I never got into an accident until well into my adulthood, I have no idea. But I was that person. I was that person that cut you off. I was that person that rode your butt and rode your tail. I was that person that would cut up a shoulder or cut up, merging lane traffic to get to that very last space. Like I was that person. So I know that that's an aspect of me I'm not proud of, and I get that. But why do I still respond so strongly to that? Like I thought I processed it, but I guess I didn't. But yeah, so that's another one. Those are the two that kind of came up for me when I was planning this call for tonight. So maybe you can relate to that, maybe not. I don't know. Maybe it's just the actual trauma that I'm still dealing with as with the car accidents. I don't know. This is where shadow work comes into play. This is why we do this work. All right. So speaking of that, very quickly, we are beings of light. We are light beings. And that is why we have a shadow, because in this 3D plane here on Earth, anything the light hits has a shadow. So the shadow is, some people call it the dark side. I like to just call it my ignored, semi-unloved side. And what I noticed that I am finding joy in is acknowledging these pieces of me and loving myself wholly and without, any what's the word I'm looking for? Wow, I can't believe I'm drawing a blank. Woo! No matter what, those are parts of me. Whether I have shame attached to it or I have a bad experience attached to it or whatever, those are parts of me and that's part of my being, my overall existence. And I love and accept myself for it. Um, Julie from the studio, for those of you that who knew her, Megan, you might be the only one, but for other people watching, I remember her saying to us in a class, she was one of our yoga instructors at the studio, and she really cupped her belly and she hugged it and she sent it love and she said, I used to hate this about myself. She said, but I love it now. And then she said, and since I loved it, it seems to have gone down a little bit. So it's just kind of fun to embrace those parts of you that, not just physically, but on our spiritual dark side of the moon, so to speak, show it some love and embrace it. Embrace those pieces of you that you've cast aside, that you've repressed, because it is you, right? All right. So some things that you can do to explore your shadow. And here's how we know, by the way, that there's something going on, and that's usually being triggered by something. So I just gave you two examples, one that's pretty resolved and one that's still pretty open. For me, what are those like, we'll call them pet peeves, right? Oh, that's my pet peeve. I hate it when people do that or whatever, like, is there something coming up for you? Um, that's what we're talking about. When you're triggered by something or triggered by someone's actions or something that they said or just something that happened in the world or whatever it is, if it's like seriously triggering you, your emotions are your guidance system. So follow that and go inward and look into why. Why is this triggering me? One of the things that we're going to talk about, some of the things that you can do as shadow work to explore these aspects of yourself is acknowledging, obviously. So you want to be aware. You got to be in tune to your emotions. Be aware that there's a reason why you're triggered for this, right? And then asking the questions. Like the question that I ask a lot, and some of you might know this one, what is still unhealed within me that is causing me to feel this way? What is unhealed within me? Because something is unhealed. Something is not processed. Something is stuck. Something wants to come up to the surface to be processed and get rid of it because we don't need to hold on to all this stuff. You hold on to this stuff and eventually it'll affect your energetic field, which eventually goes into your physical field and comes through and manifests itself as injuries and illnesses and, all kinds of stuff. So you want to flush yourself of this stuff, work on this stuff. Wow, it is 7:30 already. I can't believe it. All right. So there's a lot of things you could do. So let's talk about them real quick. So affirmations. Affirmations is a good one. And you can look these up or you can create your own. One of the ones that I use a lot is I love myself unconditionally. That was the word I was looking for. All I had to do is say my affirmation. I love and accept myself unconditionally. I love and accept my whole self unconditionally. There's so many. There's so many. You can look these up. You can Google them, or you can just take a few minutes and write them out, whatever it is that you need to do to be able to, and not embody, but embrace, those pieces of you that you've repressed for so long. Um, Journaling, right? Journaling is like huge. Journal, journal, journal. Something comes up, start writing it out. Even if it's not in a journal, it doesn't have to be in a fancy formal journal. It could just be on a piece of paper and then maybe throw it away when you're done. I can't tell you how many letters I've written to people that have hurt me over the years. I write it, write it, write it, write it, and then I burn it and I'm gone, right? It's just getting it out. It's a form of expression. It gets that energy out of your system. And sometimes when you really let it go and you continue writing, some things will come out that you weren't expecting. It happens. That's the beauty of journaling when you allow yourself to be free with it. Um, we already talked about tuning into emotions. Notice your reactions. Um, talking it out. I remember talking about this maybe during one of the workshops that I did, but thank God it is very commonplace for people to have their mouths moving in their cars and it looked like it's normal because I would just look like a crazy person all the time. I talk it out all the time, especially when I'm in the car. It's like my time to communicate, right? If I have to, I'll go for a walk or I will come into my room, close the door, whatever. But I will have conversations, and believe it or not, you will answer yourself. That who do you think you're speaking to? You're communicating directly with some aspect of your shadow there when you ask those questions and say, okay, what do I do? How do I get through this? Or, what am I meant to learn from this? Or whatever it is. These just talk it out. Talk it out. I actually have conversations with myself like I'm talking to a friend in the seat next to me. I do. I just go for it. I go for it. I did it last night. I was in the car. I went on a longer drive to go look at a house. It was like a half an hour away, and then I had 40 minutes to get to the studio because it was in the middle of that storm, and I was just talking it out, talking it out. And guess what I was talking about? Really dangerous drivers. Because that's what I experienced on my drive. I'm like, all right, let's talk about this. Why is this such an issue for me? You know? So yeah, so talk it out. Don't be afraid to talk to yourself. It's normal. It's okay. Society may not accept you, but I do. Talk it out. It's okay. It's totally fine. Meditation. Meditation is another great practice for so many different reasons. And you can go into it with an intention, or you can just kind of sit with it and just be still. Maybe something comes up, maybe something heals. Maybe after repetitive meditation, it heals. Meditation is that tricky, finicky thing. You can't quantify it. It's just one of those beautiful practices that you cannot go wrong with. There's so many benefits for it, both physical and mental and spiritually, right? Art and music, be creative. Get creative, be creative. I know that when I get into, I cross stitch, right? And when I cross stitch and I get into that mode, especially if maybe I'm playing some music and I'll sing a little bit, where I am like in meditation mode. Like I am just, it's just, very peaceful. I can't draw, I can't paint. The artistic stuff's not for me. Musical stuff is definitely much more up my alley. But yeah, just relaxing and just, we have these bracelet making workshops, right, at the studio. Megan, you were there. Cassie, you did it. I mean, how fun is that to just kind of let go of life and just kind of thread these beads onto this string, even though I didn't have my glasses and could barely see it, but still, it's like it becomes really, it's fun. It's fun, it's creative, and it's a way to just allow yourself to express yourself. Um, the mirror technique. So that is it's very similar to talking it out, except this one you actually talk to yourself in a mirror. It's not one of the practices I embrace, but I have. I've done affirmations in the mirror. You are beautiful. You are energetic. You are this, you are that, and blah, blah, blah. But I've never had a full on talk it out conversation. But maybe that's better for some people to actually see an image of someone that they're speaking to versus using the imagination. The Ho'oponopono prayer, right? So the Ho'oponopono prayer is that Hawaiian prayer. You can take this to anything. You can take it to try. It's really about forgiveness, but it's not just forgiving somebody who's wronged you, but it's also for forgiving yourself and moving on. Take a situation or take something that's coming up for you, an emotion that's coming up for you. Maybe somebody cut you off in a line and that just really irritated you, and maybe just silently repeat the prayer, right? We're going to do that a little bit later on with this exercise that we're doing today, but the prayer is, I am sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. And you just repeat this over and over again. And you keep repeating it until you feel a shift, and you will feel an emotional or energetic shift at some point. I've been brought to tears with this prayer. I've worked with this a lot. And then another one that I'm going to push here because I do truly believe in this is somatic breath work. All right. So Nicole, who is with us tonight, has these breath work workshops. She had one last month. She has one again tomorrow night, and she'll have one again at the end of August. And I've done this breath work before. I think you can, there are some online options, but I will tell you that I've done both. And having somebody with you who knows what they're doing and can guide you and knows what you need. Like, she's very trained. This is a major training that you have to go through in order to be able to perform this. Um, but it's really, really awesome. And just doing a little research today, it brings the nervous system to an altered state of consciousness. I wrote that down because that is exactly what happened to me in our last time together. Thank you for the heart, Nicole. Where are you anyway? Are you able to come on the video or not? Hey, you're muted.
My dog was demanding a lot of my attention, and I was
Oh, no,
eating,
that's
so I didn't want
okay.
to eat and shove my face full of food in front of everybody.
No,
So,
no,
but I'm
that's
done now.
okay. So tomorrow night the theme is self-love. So, oh my gosh, what better theme to tackle the shadow, to get into the nitty-gritty of your shadow side and just bring things to the surface. And the best part is like you can create an intention if there's something specific that you really want to work on and you want to heal that, or you can trust the process and just let whatever's meant to come up come up. And I will tell you that in our last session, I don't know what came over me that day. Remember that, Nicole? That was incredible. And Nicole's really good. She's really in tune with I guess you're watching. I know you're keeping the space grounded so that people can just do this releasing. Um, she'll prompt you in a way that she feels that you need it, and it's so spot on. It's just really a beautiful thing, and you will definitely feel lighter. You will feel, I mean, I walked out on cloud nine when when we were done with that and slept so good for like 3 or 4 days afterwards. This stuff is really, really powerful. I will tell you that I've done a lot of online courses, master classes, masterminds, whatever you want to call them. I've done lives, I've done online content, video modules. I have done every kind of training that you could possibly imagine. And almost every single one of these online influencers or instructors or whatever you want to call them have done this breathwork technique through their programs. So every single one of these people, and I'm talking the big ones, Aaron Doherty, Gabby Bernstein does this. Oh, what is her name? Catherine Zinkina. I mean, there's so many people. Victor Otto, he's the big one. Him and his wife are the ones that are really big into it. There's a lot of people. James Wedmore. There's so many people that incorporate this breath work because they firmly believe in it. And if you try it once, you will firmly believe in it as well. All right. And we have one going on tomorrow night. I'm not trying to just sit here and plug Live and Joy, but come to the studio tomorrow night and do this workshop. It's insane. It's amazing. And I know it sounds a little scary, but it's not. It's really a beautiful process. It really is a beautiful, beautiful practice. Um, and you will walk away. I guarantee you, you'll walk away with something resolved. Something. You may not know what it is, but you'll integrate it. It takes some time to really kind of feel that out. Maybe you journal afterwards or whatever. Maybe something specific comes up. I know one time I did it and this memory came up that I didn't even remember that I had. And it wasn't really a bad memory, but it was just a memory of someone that I hadn't thought of since I was a kid. I was like, whoa, whoa, okay, where did you come from? Well, there was a reason for it, and I explored it, and work through it or whatever, but it's really, really, really powerful stuff. All right. So it is almost 7:45 already, and I wanted to do a writing exercise with you guys tonight. And so before we do that, does anybody have any questions or want to add anything or ask observations? Nothing? Does everybody have pen and paper? All right. So in our shadow side, this is where our limiting beliefs live. This is where they've set up camp and staked down their tents. And this is the place that you want to explore. So if you feel like you're being held back from something, it's because something is holding you back. And more than anything, that's going to be a limiting belief that is true to you at this moment. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's true. So we're going to play around with this a little bit. And all I'm going to do is ask you to close your eyes. We're just going to put you in the state of mind where you can kind of tune in to something that you want to bring up, or maybe just something comes up for you. Is there something triggering to you, or is there something that you are struggling with, or something that you'd like to work through? Just kind of take a breath or two, and maybe something comes to you very quickly, and just go with it. Don't question it, just go with it. And once you have it, go ahead and open your eyes. I'm going to be asking you some questions, and you're just going to write down very quick answers. So we're not going to be writing out paragraphs and paragraphs, okay? Just write down keywords, things that come to you quite quickly that you can refer back to. And if you'd like, I could send these questions to you. So if you wanted to go through it again, you're more than welcome to do that. Are you ready to give this a try? Does everybody have something? A little something? All right, good. All right, so go ahead and just put your pen to the paper there and go ahead and keep your heads down and keep focusing on this we'll say issue. We'll say issue. And I want you to go ahead and just very quickly jot down all the feelings or emotions that come up when you think of this issue. Okay, we're going to move on. Keeping this whole issue in mind, list all the reasons that you feel that way. List all the reasons why you're feeling those emotions. Maybe they're reasons from society, maybe they're society's reasons, or your family's reasons, or your ego's reasons. But what are the reasons for these emotions that are coming up right now? So remember, just keep your responses kind of quick because we have quite a few questions to follow. So let's keep moving on. So looking at these reasons that you have just jotted down, these are your beliefs, but they could be lies. They may not be the truth, right? These could just be your own beliefs. So keeping that in mind, list out what the benefits are. What are you gaining from holding on to these beliefs? How does it serve you to hold on to these beliefs? Does it support another belief, or does it make you feel a certain way? All right, let's move on. So list out all the painful consequences of everything that you are everything that you're missing out on by holding on to these beliefs. What will your life look like in 5, 10, or 15 years if you hold on to this belief or set of beliefs that you've written down? Be dramatic here because we want to actually create scenarios that we don't want, right? So if you're holding on to this belief, what is some sort of painful experience that you'll continue to experience if you hold on to it? When you're ready, I want you to close your eyes and I want you to go to this belief or beliefs that you've acknowledged. And you're going to do the Ho'oponopono prayer to these beliefs. Now, you don't have to say it, but I would like for you to at least say it silently to yourself. I'm going to repeat this prayer quite a few times, and then we'll come through it on the other side. So just close your eyes, think of those beliefs, and just listen and repeat silently or out loud, your choice. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. Taking a deep breath and just let it go. Open your eyes. That may not have been enough time to help you shift a little bit. So I encourage you to take that and play around with it some more if you don't already work with this prayer. I'm just keeping it a little short so that I stay within the hour that we have because we only have 10 minutes left. So going back to your pen and paper, answer this question regarding your beliefs. We're going to disprove your beliefs now. So the question is did I always believe this? Quick yes or no. Did someone else teach me this belief? Does this belief apply to everybody? Could this belief have created itself based on a one-time experience? Has there ever been a time this belief didn't apply to you? Is this belief from your ego or your higher self? If you answered higher self, why? What would God or the universe or whatever you call it say to you about this belief? If someone you loved came to you with this same belief about themselves, what would you say to them? What are the new and true beliefs that can replace this old belief? Or what is the opposite of the belief that you had or have? Then list any evidence that backs up this new belief. If you don't have anything, that's okay. Sometimes it's just a deep inner knowing, but evidence may pop up for you as time goes on. And then lastly, we're just going to anchor in this new truth here by embodying the version of you that's already living this new truth. So, what is one step that you can take to become that version of you that no longer has that old belief, but has the new belief? Well, I know we breezed through that fairly quickly, and in a workshop, I would probably take a lot more time with it. But these are the kinds of things that you can do to explore your shadow self. Okay, these are some of the exercises, and there's so many out there. This is one I cannot take credit. This is one that I learned in one of the courses that I'm taking. I kind of modified it a little bit to make it a little less wordy, but I found this to be quite powerful, especially when I actually got the first time I did this, I was actually very angry. I was very angry at something, and I was just real quick answers, like real quick. But then when I went back to it after I had calmed down, I actually had to put it away for a couple of days. That's how riled up I got. And when I came back to it and looked at my answers, it really kind of, wow, it definitely shed some light on some things for me. So, um, I encourage you to just play around with this kind of stuff. Get to know your shadow self. Like get to know those pieces that you've repressed, those pieces that you've rejected. And just send love to it. Just send love to your shadow self. We all have a shadow self. We all have things, we all have stuff, right? It happens. So just bring your awareness to your emotions as they come up so that you understand that you have the triggers, number one, and then maybe you can start to begin to understand what those triggers are. Maybe you can begin to understand that whole mirror effect, understanding what it is about that person that you might actually have a trait of. And that's not saying, by the way, that if there's something that somebody has done in their past that you did it too. It doesn't mean that. It just means that there's something about the action that you have a trait of. It doesn't mean that it's like verbatim, like the same exact thing. It's just there's something there, right? So there's just something on some level there. And then also pay attention to those admiration feelings that you get because those traits that you're admiring about that person are within you. So start accepting that because sometimes we reject the good stuff too. sometimes we're like, yeah, I am a really, I don't know, magnetic personality, but I never let it out because, and then it leads into this whole other belief system. But, that person that walks into the room and brightens it up has that magnetic personality. You're always like, wow, that person just has such an energy about them. Well, so do you. So maybe start embracing some of the good stuff too. Yeah. Awesome. All right. Well, it is almost 8 o'clock, so I got to do some quick announcements. Got a lot of stuff in August, and then in September we have like nothing. So come in and get your stuff done in August, starting tomorrow night with Nicole's Breathwork Workshop. Everything can be found on liveandjoyyoga.com in the workshop sections. But on Friday night we have Healing Guide Meditation with Josie. That's part of the summer series, which goes on to the last Friday of August. Thursday, August 3rd, we have the Angelic Healing Circle with Sue. That sounds really interesting. Friday, the 4th, we have Tarot Time with Josie. Come learn about your tarot cards. Sunday, the 6th, we have Booty Yoga with Robin. Friday, August 11th, Watercolor Mini Nature Collage Workshop with Denise. And then on the 18th with Megan, we've got yoga dance and belly dancing. I'll be there for that one. That was a lot of fun. Um, by the way, if belly dancing makes you uncomfortable, then do it because that's how you kind of get through that stuff. It's actually really a lot of fun. I don't ever want to see a video of myself doing it, but I do have a lot of fun doing it. Anyway, Friday, August 25th, the last summer series event is a fire and water closing ceremony. I think Sunshine and Denise are holding that one. And then August 30th will be the August Manifest Monthly. Does anybody have any questions or does anybody want to share anything that came up? Or I'll get the text messages later, right? Everybody will text me with, this is what came up for me. This happens all the time. Everybody's really gung ho for like 5 days and then it dies off. Everybody was texting me all their synchronicities for like 4 or 5 days last month and then whoop, nothing. That's okay. It's all good. All right, then. I'm gonna end this call. Nicole, I will see you tomorrow night. I think Cassie, you'll be there too, right? I will see you tomorrow night. Keith, Lynn, Meg, coming in for some breath work. What do you think? All right. Have a good night, everybody. Thank you so much for attending, and thank you to everybody who's watching the replay. And let me know if anybody has any questions whatsoever. Have a good night. Bye.